Welcome back. Let's do this.
JFK assassination conspiracy theories. Does Trump's release add credence to any? Do the documents released by Donald Trump confirm or debunk any conspiracy theories surrounding JFK's assassination? The assassination of President John F. Kennedy on November 22, 1963, is one of the most enduring mysteries in American history. While the official investigation, led by the Warren Commission, concluded that Kennedy was killed by a lone gunman, Lee Harvey Oswald, many people have never accepted this narrative. Over the decades, a multitude of conspiracy theories has emerged, each proposing alternative explanations for what happened that fateful day in Dealey Plaza. These theories suggest that there may have been multiple shooters, a government cover-up, or even a larger plot involving various factions of American society or foreign powers. Books, films, and documentaries have continued to explore these possibilities, and even today, new theories continue to surface. The conspiracy theories surrounding Kennedy's assassination have been sustained by many unanswered questions. Why did Oswald, a relatively obscure figure, have the skills and the motives to carry out such a complex assassination? Why did the FBI and CIA have so much interest in Oswald before the shooting? Why were certain aspects of the investigation seemingly ignored or downplayed? In recent years, there was renewed hope that the truth might finally come to light when President Donald Trump, in a move that generated both excitement and skepticism, authorized the release of thousands of documents related to the assassination. This decision was hailed by some as a step toward transparency, while others saw it as a political maneuver. Whatever the motivation, the release of these files raised an important question. Would these documents add any new credence to the many conspiracy theories, or would they merely reinforce the official narrative? In this exploration, we will examine the major conspiracy theories surrounding JFK's assassination and analyze whether the documents released by Donald Trump helped to confirm or debunk them. Conspiracy theories surrounding the assassination of JFK have been numerous and varied, with each theory offering a different perspective on what happened on that fateful day. These theories have taken on lives of their own over the years, with different groups and individuals pointing to various clues that supposedly indicate foul play beyond the lone gunman narrative put forward by the Warren Commission. One of the most prominent theories is the idea that there was more than one shooter involved in the assassination. This theory, known as the multiple shooter theory, suggests that Kennedy was struck by bullets from different directions. Eyewitnesses reported hearing shots coming from areas other than the Texas School Book Depository, leading many to believe that Oswald was not the only person involved in the killing. Some even claimed that the fatal shot came from the infamous grassy knoll, which was located in front of the motorcade. This theory gained further traction with the release of the Zapruder film, a home video of the assassination, which some believe shows evidence of a second shooter. Another widely discussed theory involves the CIA, which many believe had a vested interest in Kennedy's assassination. According to this theory, Kennedy's stance on Cuba and his alleged failure to take a harder line against communism had alienated certain factions within the intelligence community. In particular, the CIA's relationship with the anti-Castro Cuban exiles and its covert operations to assassinate Fidel Castro are often cited as evidence that the CIA may have had a motive to remove Kennedy from office. Some suggest that the CIA orchestrated the assassination in response to Kennedy's policies, which they saw as weak and ineffective in the fight against communism. Similarly, the theory that organized crime played a role in JFK's death has been widely discussed. Some believe that the mafia had a motive to eliminate Kennedy due to the administration's crackdown on organized crime. Kennedy's brother, Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, led a fierce campaign against the mafia, which created significant enemies in the criminal underworld. Some conspiracy theorists argue that the mafia, angered by the Kennedy administration's efforts to dismantle their power, conspired to kill the president. The theory linking the military-industrial complex to Kennedy's assassination is also widely discussed. In this version of events, Kennedy's reluctance to escalate military involvement in Vietnam and his efforts to pursue peace with the Soviet Union made him a target of powerful military and defense industry figures. These people are believed to have had a vested interest in continuing the Cold War, as it would bolster their profits. According to this theory, Those aligned with the military-industrial complex conspired to remove Kennedy, believing that a new president would be more inclined to escalate the conflict in Vietnam and perpetuate the arms race with the Soviet Union. Finally, there's the theory that the Cuban government, under Fidel Castro, played a role in JFK's assassination. The failure of the Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961 and subsequent efforts by the CIA to remove Castro from power were significant points of contention between the U.S. government and Cuba. Some conspiracy theorists argue that Castro, seeking revenge for the failed invasion and the CIA's covert operations to kill him, may have orchestrated Kennedy's murder. Though no direct evidence has surfaced linking Castro to the assassination, the theory remains popular among some researchers and historians. In 2017, Donald Trump made headlines by ordering the release of thousands of classified documents related to the assassination. The release of these files was anticipated as a potential turning point in the long-running debate about what really happened in Dealey Plaza. Many hoped that the documents would shed light on some of the unanswered questions, while others worried that the information would only fuel more speculation. The documents released by Trump were part of a broader initiative to declassify government files, with the stated goal of increasing transparency and providing the public with a better understanding of historical events. The files included memos, reports, and communications between government agencies such as the FBI, CIA, and other intelligence organizations. Many of the documents related to the investigation into Kennedy's death, as well as the actions of Harvey Oswald before and after the assassination. Among the most significant revelations in the documents was the fact that both the CIA and the FBI were monitoring Oswald in the months leading up to the assassination. These agencies had tracked his movements and had even been aware of his trip to Mexico City, where he reportedly attempted to make contact with Soviet and Cuban officials. The discovery that both agencies were monitoring Oswald raised new questions about why he was not apprehended before the assassination and whether he had ties to foreign governments or intelligence agencies. Additionally, the release of these documents revealed that the U.S. government had been deeply concerned about Cuba and the Soviet Union in the years before Kennedy's death. Some documents outlined the CIA's covert operations aimed at destabilizing Cuba and removing Fidel Castro from power. While the release of these files did not provide direct evidence of Cuban involvement in the assassination, the documents fueled further speculation about the possibility of retaliation from Castro for the U.S.'s efforts against him. The documents also shed light on the complex relationships between the CIA and organized crime figures, many of whom had been involved in covert operations against Castro. Some of these mobsters were reportedly working with the CIA in an effort to assassinate Castro. This raised suspicions that organized crime figures, if not directly involved in the assassination, may have played a role in facilitating it or covering it up afterward. However, despite the wealth of new information, the documents did little to definitively confirm or deny any of the major conspiracy theories. Most of the newly released files were heavily redacted, and key sections of documents were still withheld from the public. This left many questions unanswered and added to the air of mystery surrounding the assassination. For conspiracy theorists, the release of these documents did little to resolve the debate. Instead, it added to the growing sense that there was a concerted effort to keep certain details of the investigation hidden from the public. The fact that so much of the information remained classified led many to believe that there was something the government did not want the public to know. In the end, the release of the documents authorized by Donald Trump did not provide the smoking gun that some had hoped for. While they offered more insight into the workings of the CIA, FBI, and other government agencies, they did not answer the most critical questions about the assassination itself. As a result, the conspiracy theories surrounding JFK's death remain as relevant as ever, with many believing that the truth is still out there, waiting to be uncovered. The release of these files did, however, underscore the complexity of the case and the difficulty of drawing definitive conclusions based on the available evidence. It also reinforced the idea that, as long as new information continues to emerge, the debate over what really happened in Dallas on November 22, 1963, will continue for years to come. Despite the release of thousands of pages of documents, the case of JFK's assassination continues to be shrouded in uncertainty and speculation. The fact that many key pieces of information were either redacted or entirely withheld has fueled suspicions that something more significant may still be hidden, and conspiracy theorists have only become more convinced of their claims. The documents, rather than clearing up confusion, have only served to further muddy the waters, perpetuating the narrative that powerful interests are trying to conceal the true story behind the assassination. For many, the new documents added credibility to the long-standing theory that Kennedy's death was not the work of a lone gunman, but rather part of a much larger conspiracy. Critics of the Warren Commission have long argued that the investigation was a cover-up designed to protect the real perpetrators of the crime. The release of the Trump declassified files seemed to reinforce this perspective, as they highlighted the tangled relationships between various government agencies, organized crime, and even foreign powers. At the heart of the conspiracy theories lies the question of why the official investigation failed to uncover more about Oswald's motivations and his potential ties to other groups. Given the fact that Oswald had connections with both the Soviet Union and Cuba, many believe that his actions may have been part of a broader geopolitical strategy, potentially orchestrated by forces outside the United States. The newly declassified documents provided more insight into these connections, but did little to clarify whether these international ties played any role in Kennedy's assassination. One of the most contentious revelations in the Trump documents was the degree to which the FBI and CIA had kept tabs on Oswald before the shooting. While it is widely known that Oswald was on the radar of both agencies, the newly released documents suggested that these organizations may have been more concerned with monitoring his activities abroad rather than acting on the potential threat he posed to Kennedy. Some of the newly revealed files showed that Oswald had been in contact with Soviet officials during his time in Mexico City, and there were reports suggesting that he had attempted to gain access to the Soviet embassy. This led some conspiracy theorists to argue that Oswald was either a Soviet agent or had been manipulated by Soviet interests, further fueling the idea that his assassination of Kennedy was part of a larger Cold War drama. While the theories involving the Soviet Union or Cuba gained prominence after the release of these documents, another theory that gained traction was the idea that Oswald was somehow tied to the CIA. Over the years, various documents and reports have suggested that Oswald may have had connections to the CIA, particularly through his interactions with anti-Castro Cuban exiles. The Trump declassified files revealed that the CIA had been involved in covert operations against Castro's regime, and some documents alluded to the agency's use of organized crime figures to carry out these operations. For many, this raised the disturbing possibility that Oswald could have been involved in a larger operation coordinated by the CIA, either knowingly or unknowingly. If Oswald had been working with or for the CIA, it could explain his erratic behavior and his apparent ease in obtaining the skills needed to execute such a highly complex assassination. The theory that the Mafia had a hand in Kennedy's assassination also gained new life with the release of the Trump documents. Although the files did not explicitly state that organized crime was involved, they revealed that the CIA had worked with mobsters to carry out covert operations against Castro. This raised the question of whether the Mafia had been involved in other CIA-backed activities, including the assassination of Kennedy. Some conspiracy theorists argue that the Mafia, angry at Kennedy's crackdown on organized crime and seeking revenge for his family's involvement with organized crime figures, orchestrated the murder of the president. The declassified documents, by shedding light on the CIA's collaboration with criminals, suggested that the lines between intelligence agencies and the criminal underworld were more blurred than anyone had previously realized. While the documents didn't confirm any one theory, they did provide crucial new context. For instance, the previously hidden documents made it clear that there was a sense of urgency within the U.S. government to prevent the spread of communism in the Caribbean, particularly after the Cuban Missile Crisis. Some files revealed that the CIA had been deeply involved in clandestine operations aimed at destabilizing Cuba and removing Fidel Castro from power. The close collaboration between the CIA and Cuban exiles, many of whom had ties to organized crime, raised questions about the extent to which these covert actions were connected to Kennedy's assassination. Did the president's efforts to cool tensions with Cuba and the Soviet Union, culminating in his willingness to negotiate with the Soviet Union, make him a target of both the intelligence community and the Mafia? The idea that the military-industrial complex was involved in Kennedy's assassination also found new life after the Trump document release. The documents offered further insight into the tensions between the president and the defense industry, particularly regarding his approach to the Vietnam War. Many of the newly released files painted a picture of a military establishment that was deeply dissatisfied with Kennedy's reluctance to escalate the conflict in Vietnam. At the time, a growing faction within the military-industrial complex was determined to expand American involvement in Southeast Asia, and Kennedy's hesitations were viewed as a threat to their interests. The theory suggests that these powerful forces may have conspired to remove Kennedy from office, with the hope that his successor, Lyndon B. Johnson, would be more willing to embrace a hardline stance against communism and increase military spending. The documents provided more details on the behind-the-scenes pressures and tensions that existed between Kennedy and these powerful military figures, further fueling suspicions of foul play. Despite all of these revelations, the documents did not contain the kind of definitive proof that some had hoped for. Many of the files were still redacted, and several of the most crucial documents were simply not released at all. This absence of conclusive evidence only deepened the mystery and left conspiracy theorists with more questions than answers. For many, the fact that the government had not fully opened its files on the assassination only strengthened the belief that a cover-up was ongoing. If the truth was as simple as the Warren Commission suggested, that a lone gunman was responsible, why would so many documents be kept hidden for decades? Why would key information be blacked out or withheld from the public? The lack of transparency surrounding the release of the documents only served to heighten suspicions. Despite the declassification of thousands of files, the public is still left with a fragmented and incomplete picture of what truly happened in Dallas. With new information continuing to surface, it seems unlikely that the debate over the assassination will ever come to a definitive end. Instead, the release of these documents has ensured that the questions surrounding JFK's death will continue to captivate the American public for years to come. The continued secrecy surrounding key aspects of JFK's assassination investigation has only fueled the belief that the public is being kept in the dark. Many conspiracy theorists argue that the release of the documents, rather than providing clarity, only highlighted how much remains hidden and suggested that there are forces within the government actively working to maintain the status quo. While some scholars contend that the documents did offer valuable insights into the context surrounding the assassination, many others have been left frustrated by the lack of concrete evidence. With important sections still redacted, it is clear that the full story is yet to be revealed, if it ever will be. Perhaps one of the most striking aspects of the Trump document release was the overwhelming sense of déjà vu it created. Many of the revelations mirrored the suspicions and theories that had existed for decades, with little new information to definitively disprove or confirm the most popular conspiracy theories. The involvement of the CIA, the military-industrial complex, and organized crime in various covert activities tied to Kennedy's assassination had long been suspected. The newly declassified files simply reinforced these suspicions, deepening the sense that the true circumstances of the event may never be fully known. For those who believe in a grand conspiracy, the release served as a validation of their theories rather than a decisive revelation. The debate about whether Donald Trump's decision to declassify the JFK files was part of a broader political strategy or a genuine desire to uncover the truth is another key point of contention. Some critics of the release argue that Trump's decision to open these files was less about transparency and more about making a statement, both about his administration's commitment to openness and his desire to generate media attention. Given Trump's penchant for high-profile actions designed to capture the public's imagination, many speculated that the release of the documents was part of his broader political persona, aimed at casting himself as a figure who was willing to defy the establishment and drain the swamp. However, others have suggested that Trump's decision may have been motivated by a genuine desire to expose a hidden truth. For years, the American public has clamored for full transparency on the assassination, and Trump's willingness to release these files could be seen as an attempt to finally open the floodgates and allow history to speak for itself. Whether or not this decision was politically motivated, it certainly sparked a renewed public interest in the JFK assassination and the larger questions surrounding American government secrecy. The very act of declassifying these documents has had a profound impact on how the story is viewed in the modern context, regardless of the contents of the files themselves. As the documents were released and analyzed, some began to wonder whether the lack of conclusive answers was part of the larger pattern of government secrecy that has permeated other key moments in U.S. history. From the Watergate scandal to the 9/11 attacks, many have pointed to instances where the government has either deliberately concealed information or failed to provide adequate transparency, leading to widespread suspicion of official narratives. The JFK assassination, as one of the most pivotal events of the 20th century, remains a focal point in this ongoing dialogue about government transparency and accountability. Yet, for all the uncertainty, the release of these files has been a reminder of the power of historical investigation. Despite the gaps, the new documents have provided further materials for researchers, historians, and journalists to explore, opening doors to new angles of inquiry that had previously been hidden from the public. Some have pointed to the release as an opportunity for fresh analysis, one that might lead to a more nuanced understanding of the assassination, even if it doesn't provide the smoking gun that many have long sought. One of the more interesting aspects of the Trump declassification was the way in which it reignited interest in the conspiracy theories that had long been dismissed or ignored. Over the years, JFK's assassination had been cast as a mystery of the past, a historical event that had already been solved by the Warren Commission. However, the release of the documents served to bring the case back into the national spotlight, reminding Americans that, despite the passage of decades, the questions about what really happened in Dealey Plaza remain unresolved. For the families of those who have spent years researching the assassination and advocating for greater transparency, Trump's decision to release the documents offered a glimmer of hope. The belief that the full truth might one day come to light became, for a brief moment, a tangible possibility. For many, the JFK assassination had always felt like an open wound, with too many unanswered questions, and the release of these documents offered a potential path toward closure. But that closure, it seems, may still be far off. While the conspiracy theories surrounding JFK's death are as diverse as they are persistent, the documents released by Donald Trump offered a closer look at the shadowy figures and organizations that many believe were involved in the assassination. By revealing previously undisclosed information about the activities of the CIA, FBI, and other government agencies, the files provided new evidence for those who contend that the assassination was the result of a broader conspiracy. However, for many, the documents only deepened the mystery, reinforcing the notion that something more sinister may have been at play. As historians and researchers continue to pore over the newly released files, the question remains: does the release of these documents truly add credence to the conspiracy theories, or do they merely provide more fuel for the fire? While some believe the documents bring us closer to understanding the truth, others argue that the lack of definitive answers means the story of JFK's assassination is far from over. For now, the debate continues, and the mystery of that dark day in Dallas lingers, with new theories, new revelations, and new questions emerging in its wake. Whatever the truth may be, it is clear that the assassination of John F. Kennedy will remain one of the most intriguing and contentious events in American history for the foreseeable future. The documents released by Trump have only added to the growing body of evidence, but they have not yet provided the final answer that would bring closure to this enduring national tragedy. In the end, the questions surrounding JFK's death are more than just historical curiosities. They reflect a broader concern about transparency, power, and the way in which history is written. As long as these questions remain unanswered, the legacy of the Kennedy assassination will continue to inspire speculation, investigation, and debate for generations to come. As we look back on the long history of the JFK assassination and the countless conspiracy theories that have arisen, one thing becomes clear: the narrative surrounding that tragic day is far from settled. The release of the documents by Donald Trump was a significant moment, offering a glimpse into previously unknown details, but ultimately, it has done little to erase the doubts and unanswered questions that persist. It's a reminder that the quest for truth in high-profile historical events is rarely straightforward, and often, the more information we uncover, the more complex the puzzle becomes. The JFK assassination is unique in the sense that it has captured the imagination of generations, and the endless theories, ranging from the plausible to the outlandish, reflect the deep sense of dissatisfaction that many feel with the official story. For some, the question is not so much about discovering the truth as it is about confronting the idea that the government has hidden or misrepresented it for so long. The debate over JFK's death isn't just about whether Oswald acted alone. It's about what the government and its agencies may have been complicit in, what they still may be hiding, and why they continue to resist full transparency. Many Americans grew up with the belief that the Warren Commission's findings were conclusive, that Lee Harvey Oswald was a lone gunman, and that the mystery surrounding Kennedy's death was simply the result of a national tragedy involving a troubled individual. But over the years, that explanation has become less and less satisfying for those who believe that something far larger was at play. The conspiracy theories surrounding the assassination offer alternative explanations that appeal to people's desire for a more complex, perhaps more exciting, version of history. And while the release of the Trump documents has provided a wealth of new information, it has also only fueled these ideas further by reinforcing the notion that the full truth is still hidden in classified files. Some conspiracy theorists argue that the reason the government has never been fully transparent about Kennedy's assassination is that revealing the truth would be too destabilizing. It would challenge the narrative of American exceptionalism, expose the flaws in the nation's intelligence and security apparatus, and undermine trust in the institutions that govern the country. This argument has led to the development of yet another conspiracy, that the very act of concealing information about JFK's death was, in itself, a form of control designed to prevent the public from seeing just how fragile the political system really was at the time. This line of thought touches on the deep-seated distrust that many Americans have toward their government. While there are those who have long believed in the official narrative of the assassination, the release of these documents and the ongoing mysteries surrounding it have contributed to the erosion of public confidence in government agencies. Over the years, revelations about covert operations, assassinations, and cover-ups have reinforced this skepticism, and the JFK assassination stands as a symbol of a much broader suspicion toward the powers that be. For those who believe in the conspiracy theories, the release of the Trump documents served as both a disappointment and a validation. Disappointment because the files did not provide the conclusive answers they had hoped for, and validation because the information revealed continued to suggest that the case had not been fully closed. For them, the question of whether the truth will ever come out is no longer a matter of if, but when. As long as the government continues to withhold key documents, as long as new theories and evidence continue to surface, the mystery of Kennedy's death will remain unresolved. Yet, there are those who believe that the release of these documents has, in some way, already brought us closer to the truth. Even if the documents don't offer definitive proof of a conspiracy, they provide valuable context for understanding the climate of the time. They reveal the tensions between the U.S. government and Cuba, the military-industrial complex's desire for a more aggressive foreign policy, and the covert activities of intelligence agencies. For these individuals, the sheer volume of new information helps to paint a more comprehensive picture of the political landscape in which Kennedy's assassination occurred. In their eyes, the release of the documents represents a step toward uncovering a more nuanced version of history, one that acknowledges the complexity and intrigue of the time. The tragedy of JFK's assassination is that it remains just that, a tragedy with a complicated, unresolved legacy. It is a wound that has never fully healed, and the attempt to uncover the truth behind it remains a deeply personal journey for many. Some feel that knowing the truth would provide a sense of closure, while others worry that it would only open new wounds. It is a story that speaks to the human desire for clarity and understanding, for closure and justice, even decades after the fact. The documents, which were eagerly awaited by many, do not provide the definitive answer that so many sought. They do not resolve the debate over whether there was a conspiracy, nor do they erase the doubts and questions that persist. But they offer something else, a window into the complexities of the historical moment in which Kennedy was killed, and the way in which the powerful forces of government, intelligence, and politics intersected at a critical point in American history. For some, the release of the documents is a victory, even if they don't bring clarity. They see it as a sign that the truth will eventually be revealed, whether through further releases of documents or through continued public pressure. For others, it's a reminder that the story of JFK's death is far from over, and that the pursuit of truth may be as elusive as ever. As long as there are unanswered questions, the theories will continue, and the debate will rage on. In the final analysis, the JFK assassination remains a haunting mystery. The official narrative, the theories, and the release of thousands of pages of documents by Donald Trump only serve to highlight how deep the mystery runs and how much more there is still to understand. Perhaps, in time, the truth will emerge, but for now, the assassination remains a riddle wrapped in an enigma, and the questions will continue to linger in the minds of those who seek to unravel the ultimate conspiracy. As we stand on the precipice of another chapter in American history, it's clear that the story of John F. Kennedy's assassination will continue to captivate, intrigue, and mystify us for generations to come. Whether or not the documents released by Donald Trump add credence to the many conspiracy theories, or whether they offer any new conclusions, one thing is certain. The legacy of JFK's death will endure, and the search for the truth will never truly end.